think that was just a simple request. Let me say this. Ambassador is very diplomatic. He made a lot of sense. Like, he was actually really trying hard.
2 hours.
It started off well.
2 hours, boss.
But I think the problem is everybody wanting to say something.
Was a diaspora conference meeting that was called by the Kenyan Ambassador to the US, Lazarus Amaya. This meeting was last night, and the goal of the meeting was to prepare for an upcoming visit by President William Samoei Ruto, who's going to be attending a summit for African leaders. So the ambassador was just trying to get people together to try and see how we can communicate to the president our issues. The meeting started very well with the ambassador, and I think the deputy ambassador was also there. But within a very short time, it became chaotic. It became a shouting match, and there was very little progress that was made in the overall goal of the meeting. I was in the meeting, and the people on the panel were in the meeting. Let me start with you, Omosh Fire. What was it that maybe just try to recap, what was happening in the meeting and what led things to disintegrate to the level where it became a shouting match. Omosh Fire.
So like you said, the meeting was put together by, even though the ambassador put it together, to me, and he kept saying it, they were facilitators. So I think there was direction from Nairobi, because the president is coming, like you said, for the presidential summit, similar to what Obama did in, 14, I think it was. Unless my years are wrong, right? 2014, I think was the last African heads of state summit. And there's, I think, 42 or 49 presidents that have been invited to this meeting with Biden, which is occurring, I think, December 12th to 14th, I think it is. I could be wrong about the dates. But anyway, and in that, President Ruto, he wants to meet the diaspora when he's in DC. And the issue was to have an agenda to present to him so that there's one common talking point from folks in the diaspora, and diaspora related issues or questions would be forwarded to President Ruto, so that he can then now, go back on file with his folks who are in the diaspora ministry and come up with solutions for us, probably taking into account that we do send a lot of money. And so he was basically bringing together whoever came on the call. There was about 200 and I think it was 220 people or something like that who were in the call at the high end. And what the goal of that meeting was to get names of either 20 to 30 people who would make a committee, a working committee that would then sit down, get all these points and all issues together, and then present them during that upcoming meeting. And they would have subsequent meetings at some point to, get together and come up with an agenda that would then be, given and or forwarded with questions pertaining to the diaspora, because something that's unique about us as a diaspora is we all have the same issues in the diaspora. It's not like our issues are this guy's a farmer, this guy is, an IT guy or whatever. No, as diaspora, our issues are the same. We are basically one tribe. Folks may not really want to agree to that, but our issues are the same. Kama ni mambo za passport, sisi sote tunakula gunzo there. If it's mambo za consulate, it's the same thing. If it's problems of, maybe visas, it's the same thing. Our issues are the same. Issues with, folks, except now you move to the Middle East and so on, you have the issues of abuses and things like that. But it got to a point where there was no way for folks to agree. So, they were asked, okay, forward names, just, type them in, do this. And, and everybody who has been with some organizations or organizations that were part and parcel of when President Ruto was candidate Ruto, and had met with folks, came in and said, okay, you know what, since we're in DC, we're the ones who are going to take charge of this. Everybody else jump in and join us. And at that point, it just erupted. It went from south to southwest, and it got to a point where you could not talk. Folks were shouting. Guys were like, no, you're trying to rig this and that. Those accusations coming left and right. It got to a point where everybody was muted, except the ambassador and the guy who was facilitating. And people were asked to put names in the chat. And those names were being collected, collated, and probably those at the end of it all, those they were going to be able to contact, there was probably between 60 to 100 names that had been forwarded, and they're probably going to call a meeting that those folks would then now come into again and probably try to narrow it down. The challenge here is that they have to do all of this within a month. I think that's going to be tough. It's possible to do it, but they're going to have to realize that this is not about trying to look good. It's not about a party. It's not about a person. This is about the diaspora in general, and not diaspora US. It's diaspora everywhere, because this is a chance that folks have to address the president, who has the power and authority to make changes that would affect how folks vote, where people vote from, how things are done, all the issues that we end up having. Right now we're going through issues where at the end of this month, all passports are going to expire unless you have an e-passport. There's some people who don't know that, but it's true. If you don't have an e-passport, come the end of November, whatever your passport says, that the date on it, it's null and void. You can't travel with it. So guess what? You have to get a new passport. Try and get an appointment. That's also, 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks out. So if you're trying to go home in December, you are probably going to have to get a travel document and do a one-way, and then go uko nyumbani Nyayo house and talk to somebody who knows another person, and then you hunger that person because of this, and you say you don't want to be corrupt, but guess what? It was a one-way. When you were going, you need to come back for your job. So how about you are going to be the one who is, hungering. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, Omosh, quite, you brought up, you've summarized very well, some of the issues that happened in that meeting, and the issues that are facing us out here in the diaspora that are very serious. Before we come to Uno, because Uno was also there in the meeting, there was something, and I see here Stephen Batty also noticed that that I was also going off in the comments, because there was someone who I don't want to mention his name, who I think
Toboa, what are you scared of?
No, this is not they were triggered seeing me commenting there. There was a sense of entitlement where I felt a certain cabal of people who had been helping the president campaign when he was still the deputy president. They came there with a sense of entitlement, to the point where they started feeling like, when they're seeing some names, they started feeling like they could censure some people because they never supported the deputy president, which was very problematic in its sense. But to the embassy, and this is Ambassador, if you're listening to me, because I know Ambassador had very good intentions. He did not realize that this meeting was going to
blow up that way, that quick.
But here's one thing where we need to stop doing things in the same way. Now, the primary mode in which the embassy has been connecting with Kenyans is through diaspora organizations. I have a newsflash for you, Kenyan Embassy. Over 95% of Kenyans who live here in the US do not care about those organizations. And I'm sorry, if you're a chairman or a treasurer or whatever of those organizations, Kenyans are just not interested in those organizations. Those organizations are representative of very few people. In my own assessment, maybe less than 2 or 3% of the Kenyans who live out here. So I think the embassy needs to rethink how they engage Kenyans in the diaspora. This idea of always telling people who have issues that, oh, get yourselves together in an organization, register nini. No, the embassy needs to go out to wherever the people are. If the people are, there's certain places where it's known Kenyans are. If the people are in churches, the major Kenyan churches in the country are known. If you're gonna have a discussion with promoters and DJs, they're known. You have to go to the people the way they're organized and not the way you want us to be organized. And this is the crux of the problem. And this always happens. It's just that this one exploded to a level that was unprecedented. But I think this was full testament to the fact that this idea of diaspora organizations is dead, and the embassy needs to relook at how it engages Kenyans in the US. My suggestion, of course, we do need this has to be a full-time job. They cannot only be engaging us when a politician is coming, when MPs are coming, when ministers are coming, when presidents are coming.
True.
There has to be a regular
constant, yes,
of communicating to people,
and a channel that's open that people can go to, whether it's a Slack channel, I don't know, something.
Yes, such that when there's something that's about to happen, you're just tapping in to a system that's already in existence and not trying to find 200 people in a Zoom conference who will just clash with each other. So I think this was,
and the 200 people are also not representative of the entire diaspora.
They're not, and that's the reason why I'm saying
and diaspora is not just
has
the
to
US.
Be creative in how they choose to engage. We need to have a diplomat whose sole responsibility is to engage with the diaspora. Someone who does this every day, because the diaspora has become so big, we can no longer do things the same way we were doing. So I think that's very important to note. And I think going forward, after this meeting, because to me, this is a lost opportunity. In my opinion, the people who hijacked the meeting, or the people who felt entitled, the people who are helping the deputy president campaign, they can go to that meeting when the president comes, and they can have, because some people are talking about celebration. What are we celebrating, when we know that in the USA, the deputy president, who's now the president, got only 30% of the US vote. So there was a lot of lack of empathy, insensitivity, and a high sense of entitlement, which is very, very dangerous. And this needs to be taken care of. Let me come to you, Uno, to get maybe your perspective. Maybe you might have seen things differently. Uno.
Let me just say this. I think Ambassador's proposal was very simple. If you are in an organization or whatever, let's get the numbers, talk to your representatives, but you get the numbers, let us organize something. Then you can talk to your people, find out what needs can be tabled, bring them up, and then whoever is the committee organizing can wither down, or they can decide what is of importance, or come to a consensus. And I think that was just a simple request. Let me say this: Ambassador is very diplomatic. He made a lot of sense. He was actually really trying hard. 2
hours.
It started off well.
2 hours, boss.
But I think the problem is everybody wanting to say something. Sometimes you don't have to say anything.
Correct.
You don't have to. His request was very simple. Let's get a group of organizations, if the organizations, because he has put out there, if you're on an organization, register with us. Let us see.
Or if you're individuals, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Forward your name.
Forward names, yes.
Your names are being picked up by the deputy. His assistant, his career. Gashero, Ambassador Gashero.
Yes.
He was speaking. He was writing the names as people were suggesting. Names were being written down.
Correct.
Which is okay.
Yes.
And I think it would have been simple. And then once that was done, the people who are suggested, they'll have a meeting, they'll organize, watakutana, and they will go ahead and sort out, and when
they'll continue and
when president comes
come
in
up with a working
mid-December,
agenda, and they'll give it to him, and
it was very
talking
simple.
points. Yes.
But then it became a shouting match. It became uncouth to a point where I'm even thinking these are the so-called guys who are supposedly supposed to represent us, the diaspora. Surely.
Leaders.
Like, okay, these are the guys who Ambassador is relying on, right? We have a guy over there saying, you have to give us names of guys, and you might even be putting your own son over there, your own daughter. Now, this is a guy who's talking and addressing the Ambassador Gisheru. Like, surely.
I was like,
there's no decorum.
He sounded like he had a personal agenda.
Like, there's no respect. Like, even just respect that, this is the ambassador. So, like Ali said, most of those guys really don't represent, they don't engage. They do their things. We find out after, like, guys have already met in 254.
I wonder which groups are these? Because these
guys
are like... Some of those groups is the first time I ever heard of them. And I think that I'm woke when it comes to Kenyanese stuff.
And me, I think personally, I think most Kenyans...
we are woke. We are all woke here at the OneMicShow Kenyanese stuff.
So Ali, where are these groups coming from?
But I think most Kenyans want to be able to, when it comes to process your passport, ID... But like when you look at stuff,
voting and registering your kids so that they can become Kenyans.
That is it.
What we go through some comments, but before we go, I want to actually read one particular comment, a question to Bandio. Maybe it's good also to just maybe get an outside perspective of this, because we are all speaking as insiders on this Kenyan issue. Now Pablo is asking Bandio, huko kwenyu Tanzania kuna mambo kama haya yetu wa Kenya kweli? Huku kwetu ni hujma tu. So Bandio, Tanzania kama hizi ambazo tuko nazo ama ni sisi wa Kenya tu?
Tunazo. Yes.
Boss, you haven't seen that he said what is even nyinyi afadhali.
It's a lot. Na to say the least, mambo yako moto.
Bandio is speechless.
But Bandio, you guys have two big chamas, right? At one time, there was two huge chamas.
Yes.
And those were Diaspora US. I don't know about outside US.
Yeah, which was very unfortunate. Anyway.
Yeah.
But that was a bad move anyway. Kuwa na chama cha, it's so sad that we had people with CCM flags kwenye nyumba ambazo unaweza kutembea the entire system unajiona flag ya Democrat. Na Democrat state. So yeah, hayo mambo yapo, but the same thing Ali umesema. If you only meet once in 2-3 years, watu watakuwa na vitu vingi vya kusema kuliko muda. You'll never have enough time ya watu kupanga. This is opportunity mtu akipata, anataka aseme yote ambayo kupata nafasi ya kusema. And that's happening, it's cooking. Nasubiri siku mtu wa balozi wa Tanzania akifanya hivyo, nitakuja kuambia it's going to be even worse. Kwa sababu watu hawapati nafasi ya kuzungumza wakati mwafaka. Alafu by the time mnaanza kuzungumza, unajikuta mko kwenye position ambayo unajaribu kunyamazisha wengine kwa sababu you just want to take only this. Let's focus on this. Lakini kuna mtu anaya kwake anayo for years, anataka kuyasema.
Yeah.
Na hapo ndio shouting match inaanza. So it's very unfortunate.
What was interesting that I saw as issues for Kenyans, we can switch that. For Tanzanians, it's the same exact thing. Watu wa diaspora, we have the same exact issues. And that's the thing that a lot of our diaspora folks, or should I say a lot of us, don't seem to realize. When it comes to issues of the consular services, it comes to issues of kuna matanga, it comes to issues of, right now, the big one that is capturing a lot of folks is mental health. Na watoto, that's there, and it doesn't matter whether it's a Tanzanian or whether it's like anybody who has kids ambao wamelewa humo. It's an issue of it's across the board. Doesn't matter. They're all the same. Because matanga tukienda tunaenda the same ones. It's the same exact issues, same exact things across the board. I wish there was even a way to get all our presidents, tunaweka pamoja, tunaambia okay, sikizeni, hivi ndio mnafaa kufanya ili kutusaidia, kwa sababu sisi ndio tuko nje na sisi ndio tunatuma hela.
Good luck with that.
Okay, Aya, let me sample some comments here real quick as we get ready to wrap up this segment. But again, I'm gonna say, you know, like the embassy just needs to rethink this model of it has to be an organization. They're asking for articles of association. Most Kenyans don't want to be part of that, you know, like, and again, I'm sorry to people who run these organizations. I hope you're listening to me. Kenyans don't want to be part of those organizations. And I think some of these organizations, they were started with noble intent, but eventually ubinafsi uliingia and politicization. And quite a number of these organizations, they have the tag Kenya in front of them. But to be honest, they're mostly tribal groupings. Most of the time when people are contacting me to join their organization is because wanaangalia jina Ali Badawi and they're like, oh, wow, this guy, his name is good. It's going to fill a certain quota to make our organization look diverse. And that's what I noticed.
Make organization great again.
Yeah, you know, they're trying to make organizations great again. And I'm not about that business, you know, like I'm not about filling quotas. Because these organizations, when you look at some of the character, they're essentially, you know, like very tribal. And it's okay, you know, like to me, I applaud the groupings that say hini group ya Kalenjin, ama hini group ya Kisi. That's okay.
Yes.
But when you append the term Kenya to it, then let's not try to, you know, like misuse, you know, like that brand. So when you know that this is a village meeting that you're essentially creating.
Ali, mimi tu niseme kwa balozi. Na nilimwambia tu balozi wa Tanzania. Tuko Marekani. And just balozi wa Kenya, US. Tuko Marekani na unakuta kuna 50 states. Na uhakika hawajawahi kwenda. Kuna baadhi ya sehemu maafisa wa balozi hawaendi. Huko kuna sehemu huko Iowa sijui wapi kuna Wakenya wawili. Hawezi kuwafikia. Unajua? Lakini tuna changamoto kwamba hizi balozi zetu na serikali zetu wazinapuuza sana mass communication. Ambayo kwangu mimi ni fourth pillar katika nchi yoyote. Na tulishawaambia njooni hapa tuandalie mpango mkakati, tutengeneze structure nzuri ya kuwa mnawasiliana na watu on a monthly basis. Hawa watu balozini wanakwenda Monday to Friday wanafanya kazi. Sindio?
Correct.
Monday to Friday. Mwezi mzima. Big chance ni 90% ya Tanzania na Wakenya na Waganda hawajui nini kinaendelea pale.
Correct.
Kuna information ambazo zinakuja, ambazo zitakiwa, ambazo will be very expensive kwa wao kwenda kudisseminate huko mpaka Hawaii na kila mtu. Lakini wangeweza kutumia studio ama kipindi cha One Mic kusema kwamba tunataka kuwa wakabook every month wakawa na sehemu tu ya update ya kutoka balozini. Hiyo ingepunguza hizi shouting ambazo zinatokea kwa sababu watu hawajui nini kinaendelea. Imagine kama walijua rais atakuja 2 months ago. Wakawa wamekuja kwenye One Mic vipindi 3 mfululizo. Wanawaambia watu and they don't have to physically be here. Wanaweza kaa kwenye undisclosed location kama Ali. Unawaambia anapiga simu either ni balozi anakaa kwenye Zoom pale ubalozini whatever, anawaambia tunakusanya maoni, tuma kwenye hii email, kufanya hivi na hivi. Vitu vingekuwa sorted long ago.
That sounds so organized, right?
Lakini sasa tatizo ni kwamba hizi balozi zetu au basi endelea Ali.
Yes, so I think
but funnily enough they did end up sending an email and said here's an email, send email to there.
Yeah, so to me this meeting, you know, like no offense, you know, like I know the ambassador had good intent, but this was
this guy,
you know, like,
Ali, I'm telling you, this guy is a gentleman and a scholar. Siko ubaya. That guy was extremely diplomatic. Kuna wale wangekata hiyo kitu waseme ikae, and I'm the one who's gonna put my foot down na nitawambia vile itafanyika.
Yes, that's right, because people got so rowdy. But again, I also feel like he's working under very difficult circumstances because I think these were orders that came from above. And this was kind of like a checkbox type of situation, you know, like we have to do this, but it wasn't quite effective. Interesting comment here coming from Washeke Ndirangu. She says the same organizations have sold Kenyans to conmen who come to sell land properties to the diaspora.
Wow.
And then hapo Slea naongezea Washeke, I was going to say this, nikasema wacha nisichome kwanza in Texas. And then Stephen hapa anasema wacha niharibu. We are the fewest people in our diaspora and underrepresented. I'm not mad, but it's just the truth. Sorry, don't read this comment out aloud. Too late, Stephen Bati. You know,
na huyo ndio ule mtu uenda kutafuta kazini.
Yeah, hapana si huyo hapo. Huyo kutafuta kazini ni mwingine, tutamtafuta huyo hapo. Huo tumletee kwa OneMicShow. Yeah, so there's so much to this. I think we're gonna follow up with what's gonna happen on this meeting.